Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. To follow Prince is the way this goes. My name is Leslie Smith, and I have the distinct honor of being asked to guide us through today as we celebrate the life of the glorious Elizabeth Lemmonds. And it is not only a wondrous job to be asked to do, but a daunting and scary job to be asked to do. So bear with me as we go through this together. I see so many faces of people I know and love. It is very, very important to the girls and all of us who loved Elizabeth that we focus on the celebration of her life and her impact and her wonder and dynamism and optimism and unmitigated joy, and not focus on how she died. So I ask that you hold that as a sentiment as we move through the day. It is clear that we will be and are tragically sad about the reason we are joined together, but also so grateful that Elizabeth brought us into a space where we get to know and love each other. So thank you for being here, and thank you for committing to celebrate the life of this extraordinary human. There's in the folder Khalil Gibran's On Sorrow and Joy, which is a poem that brought many of us close to Elizabeth in times of deep grief in our own lives. I now have a whole stack of the Prophet on my shelf, and I give it to people when they lose folks because it was such a comfort to me. I read it often, and I think of Elizabeth every time I do. But what I think is so important about that piece is the notion that we hold collectively the universal balance of sorrow and joy, and days like today are a perfect expression of that. We can be both sad and joyful at the same time. So I'm grateful to my dear friend for bringing not only that philosophy and life, but that poetry into my realm. Welcome, please come. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our planned run of show. There's obviously an agenda in your document, but I'm going to tell you what's going to happen because it is beautiful and, again, a deep expression of the way Elizabeth showed up in the world. We're going to have a lovely sound meditation with our friend Eric, who I've just met. We are going to hear from the extraordinary legacy women that are Flannery and Ripley. We're going to hear from Kevin McKeel. We're going to hear from my beautiful daughter and beloved son-in-law, Emily and Nate, who are going to perform one of Elizabeth's favorite songs for all of you. Molly Pilati is going to speak, Alyssa Bennett. Jenny, where's Jenny? Jenny is here, and we'll do an astrological reading. And then we're going to open the floor for any of you who want to come and share a memory or celebration or reflection of Elizabeth at the end. And then we'll come have some closing remarks and further direction about what we're going to do after this. So I'm going to start by just sharing a few of my own reflections of Elizabeth before we go into the sound meditation. Elizabeth, Steve is here, Cantor is here. Elizabeth is really, I knew Gretchen before I moved here, who thankfully has granted us the use of this space as the president and CEO of Valley Memphis. But Elizabeth was the first new friend that I made in Memphis when we moved here in 2015. And I met her. I was here to launch an entrepreneurial effort. This is irrelevant, but everyone told me if you're doing anything in entrepreneurship, you have to meet Elizabeth Lemmonds. And I was like, okay, cool. So we arranged a meeting at Otherlands in the back. And we sat there for hours and hours and hours as if we had known each other our whole lives and had a shared commitment to the work we were doing and community and people. And I knew immediately, like, this is the person I need to know to do this work. And she ultimately became the first person that I hired at Epicenter, and she sort of sat by my side in this dingy cafeteria at the old Memphis Bioworks building that was what we called our office. There are a few things that became so clear to me about Elizabeth in that first meeting, and I've sort of tried to sum them up in these three things: family, friendship, and faith. And that means a lot of things to a lot of different people. She has a deep and abiding commitment to her family, not only her girls, Ellen, Ian, Scott, all of these people that are around her. And those of us that are lucky enough to be friends with her feel almost immediately like we are a part of that family. She has friendships with so many people in this community and around the region and the country, because the minute you met her, you were friends with her. Like, it was immutable. There was no way you were ever going back to not being friends. And that showed up in everything she did and everywhere she moved. And I say faith, and I know that's a big loaded word in Memphis, Tennessee, but faith in everything. Faith in humanity, faith in people, faith in art, in joy, in community, in love. She had just this deep and relentless optimism in faith that it was all going to be okay. And even when all of this started to happen, just never-ending faith in healing and hope for the future. Even when I was feeling a lot of things that were very different than that on her behalf or my own selfish behalf. We moved through a lot of stuff together in terms of the entrepreneurial endeavors. She started a thing called So You Think You Want to Be an Entrepreneur, which was kind of this is your brains on drugs. And she was trying to remind people that entrepreneurship is awesome, but it's also really hard and scary, so you better be sure you want to do this. And at the end of that, you knew that if you did want to do it, she was going to be your #1 champion for the rest of all time. And in fact, I've met with a number of people since Elizabeth got sick, all who said, it was Elizabeth that told me I could do this. It was Elizabeth that made me believe I could do this. And what power to have over people in the world. All of those were expressions of her sort of unmitigated faith in all of us. When I moved to Memphis in March of 2015, I left my family behind, and Elizabeth and I were sort of alone together, figuring things out. Life was transitioning and evolving around us, and we went to 3686, which is a tech conference in Nashville. Elizabeth promptly taught me how Memphians were supposed to feel about Nashville. Inside joke. But because we were both in situations where we were taking care of two really extraordinary humans, we decided to bring them with us. We shared a hotel room and took turns going to the conference while the other one stayed back and took care of our girls. And I still have videos from that weekend when these two humans were putting on swimming shows at the pool in Nashville. And it was that week that we were together in Nashville, not only solidified us as family, Elizabeth and I, but brought Flannery into our lives in a way that is everlasting. And she and Delaney have been best friends ever since. And so, gifts show up in the weirdest and most delightful ways. I will say that I always knew about Ripley, and it was as if I knew her deeply and widely because of how often Elizabeth talked about her. I came to know Ripley as she was bartending and doing other things across the community. We hired her a couple of times at Epicenter, but I've really gotten to see her through this experience with Elizabeth. And And while Elizabeth and I share a lot of things in common, we're also fundamentally the same age and have two extraordinary daughters that are an absolute expression of the best and worst of us. And so watching and sharing all of that with Elizabeth was a great joy for me. She came to Chicago not long after we moved, and Greg lit the fire on the roof. And just like bottle of wine after bottle of wine, we just sat up there until the wee hours of the morning talking about all of the things that we cared about. And it always came back to our girls. So I'm deeply grateful for that connection. Speaking of talking, anyone that knows me would be really shocked to find that there's someone who likes to talk as much as I do. But Elizabeth was that person. So we had really met our match when we were sort of fighting for time to talk to each other about what mattered most, and could literally never become exhausted and just find new things to talk about. We talked in that crazy cafeteria at BioWorks for hours, by the pool, in the park, at bars, at conferences that we went to together, everywhere. And I will miss those conversations quite deeply. You're never, ever, ever quite ready for someone to leave your life. Elizabeth and I were talking about this upcoming season of our lives where we empty our nest and we figure out what comes after that. And it's a scary and daunting time. I'm sad that I won't be able to text her and talk to her about those things or all of the million other things that we talked about, which felt so random and beautiful at times. But I am grateful for this community who will always remain a part of my life and is an expression of Elizabeth in my life, and for the opportunity to get to know her daughters, who I'm never letting go because I love with all of my heart. And I am proud of you in ways that a mom would be proud, and love you in ways that only a mom understands. And I'm grateful that you've given me the honor of being here with all of you today. Make It So is on the screen behind me. The thing about Elizabeth was not only did she support every entrepreneur, she was an entrepreneur herself. And she tried so many amazing and wonderful things when everyone told her it wouldn't work and when only she believed it. She brought Forge to Memphis, probably well before Memphis even knew it needed Forge, and poured her whole life into it. She brought that same energy to Epicenter and Startco and Arrow and other foods, kitchen incubator. Like everywhere she went, she just poured the entirety of her being into it, and every place that she was is better because of it. So I have no problem dedicating the entire weekend and the rest of my life to celebrating the life of the amazing and wonderful Elizabeth Lemmonds. And I'm grateful that all of you are here to do it with me. Thank you.
So, as I begin this, I want you to think about how Elizabeth really just calls us to life, right? The things that she did. If there's anything that you have on the back burner or that you're waiting for later to do, fuck that. Move, get moving, do it. Do it. She was a do-it kind of person, and she helped me bring some events to Memphis that were meaningful and made spaces available to people that they wouldn't be able to access otherwise. And we can all give that kind of energy to Memphis. And so as we begin here, just the journey to freedom is hard. But it's joyful, and I want you to think about just that freedom that she experiences now.
those who don't know us, I'm Ripley. This is Flannery. Probably tell because we look just like her, or she posted about us on Facebook all the time. I never finished my speech. I kind of just couldn't bring myself to, so we're going to kind of wing what I have, but I did inherit her love of talking, so we'll just see how this goes. First, I want to thank everyone for coming, and thank you to Leslie and Eric. That was a very beautiful sound healing session. We all know my mom was really into things like that. All right. I don't know where to begin this speech. I could talk about how she was adventurous and talk about how she went ziplining on her wedding day. When we would go to Universal, she would always ride every ride with me. We would go to Halloween Horror Nights together because she loved horror movies, obviously. We were just kind of like adrenaline junkies together. And even as she got older and that kind of stuff would make her a little more anxious, she would just take beta blockers because she wasn't going to not do those things. Let's see. I'm going to say I never really had a rebellious teenage phase because she never really gave me anything to rebel against. She was just really cool, and I don't know, she wasn't like a regular mom, she was a cool mom, so what is there to try to make her mad about? I just was like always trying to impress her. I know a lot of people would be mortified to hear that they're acting just like their mother, and our mom definitely had her fair share of cringy Facebook posts. I'm honestly really upset that we'll never know what she would have been writing this past week. But we'll just have to imagine. We'll drink a bottle of wine and maybe I'll write one. But the older I get, the more I see her mannerisms in myself, and overall I take it as a compliment when people compare me to her. Not just because she was the most beautiful person inside and out, but because she was also the funniest, most intelligent, most compassionate, and most fearless. Around this time last year, we were walking down the Vegas Strip, and there were performers and like women with no clothing, and my mom wasn't paying any of it attention until there was this man holding 2 pythons, and she was like, "We have to get pictures with the pythons." And no one else really wanted to. Honestly, we were trying to avoid paying to have to hold them, but it did not deter her at all. So she made me get a picture of her with a python, and then she made me put one on too, and we got some pictures that we're showing a few minutes ago. Anyway. I already made that joke. I just have to say that she was jerkin because I had to make a Josie and the Pussycats reference. So my mom was really jerkin. There's not one moment in my life where I remember my mom being disappointed in me. It didn't matter how impulsive of a decision I would make, she'd stand behind me and support me through and through. If you've ever had a conversation with me for longer than 5 minutes, you know that I quit my job as a copywriter at the beginning of 2023. And instead of scolding me or calling me entitled, instead she started calling me, I don't know where to go. She started calling me anytime she needed work advice because she was proud of me for standing up for myself. And I've always known she was proud of me and Flannery, but to hear it from all of you these past few months has made me realize just how proud of us she was. But now that I think about it, what's not to be proud of? She raised 2 strong, outspoken daughters who fight for what they believe in. And I hope she realized how much credit she should have taken for that. I had a lot of fun with my mom growing up because she was still in her 20s for a lot of my childhood. We rented movies from Black Lodge, and I got to go to a lot of her friends' parties. She herself loved throwing a good party. She really loved a good theme. We came up with really creative Halloween costumes every year, like Shock from Nightmare Before Christmas or Bride of Frankenstein. I was a space girl one year. We would just and she made every single one of the costumes. Like, that was a big part of it. We would go to like Hancock's and pick out all the stuff. Sorry. All of my birthdays had different themes with elaborately decorated cakes. Some people have asked me if she was an artist based on like her dedication to the art community, and I never really know what to say because she wasn't an artist who made money off of her art, but she was just so creative. Like I said, with the Halloween costumes and the cake decorating, and every time we would move into a new apartment or house, the first thing we would do is pick out paint for all of the rooms. And every time I moved as an adult, I would call her and tell her I needed her to come over and help me decorate because she had a really good eye for that sort of stuff. She helped me make my high school and college graduation announcements, just a bunch of fun, creative things. So it was really fun existing just like me and our mom for a little while, but that being said, I cannot imagine a life without Flannery. I can't imagine our relationship without Flannery. I'm 12 years older than her, so I got to watch and help her with all of her birthday parties, Christmases, Halloweens, so we built a different relationship doing that as opposed to when it was for me. We made a great little matriarchy, especially with Hope and Rosemary. Actually, the last time I saw our mom before I found her was for Flannery's 18th birthday party in Nashville. Everything went perfectly, and it even snowed during Flan's birthday dinner. I couldn't get over how good of a time we all had, and I'm glad we were able to have that memory together. To my mom, I'm gonna miss holding your hand through the haunted houses at Halloween Horror Nights and reminiscing about every year we had been going together since 10th grade. I'm gonna miss our talks every year at the beach when it would be just the two of us floating away from everyone else. I miss when you let me skip school to see the tigers fly home in 2008. I'm going to miss you this Tuesday when I turn 30 and won't get to read whatever Instagram post you would have made. I'll miss you at my wedding where I won't ever get to see the cake you would have decorated for me. But I know that everyone who encountered you, or everyone you encountered, holds a piece of you inside of them. And as long as they're around, you'll be around too. I'm so happy to have inherited your sense of humor. I didn't even realize how strong your influence was until you were living with me and Brian. And I would just come home from work and we would just hang out for hours. And it was like nothing was any different. That's where I stopped writing my speech. But I think I covered most of what I wanted to say. Just really gonna miss her. And I'm really happy that you're all here to celebrate her today. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Flannery. I'm my mom's youngest daughter. I did inherit her love for talking, but I did not inherit her eloquence while doing it, so bear with me. I might go off of this a little bit, but looking around today, I see the perfect embodiment of the legacy my mom has left with us. She spent her time here on earth working to uplift others from all walks of life, and watching this diverse group of people come together in honor of her is living proof that she succeeded in that goal. In this room, there's probably every type of person you can imagine, because my mom spread love to just about every type of person you could imagine. So despite the differences you may share with the person to your right or left, I'm beyond grateful that we can all be here together over our shared love for my mom, Elizabeth Lemmonds. Everybody here had the privilege of knowing her, and you knew that she loved Memphis, she loved the arts, and that she dedicated her career to intermingling the two, working every day to give local artists and businesses the tools they needed to flourish in the city. However, I had the privilege of knowing a unique side of her. I got to know her as my mother, or as my sister said, as our cool mom, which is not to be confused with a regular mom. Thanks to my mom, we actually could not have had a less regular family. You probably have not met anybody else whose holidays were spent with two ex-husbands, one of their moms, and two daughters 12 years apart in age. But with that being said, you probably also have not met anyone else who smiled and laughed as hard as she did when our family was all together, despite it not being regular. The only downside I could personally see to the situation was not actually getting to have 2 Christmases, which is the only benefit promoted in the Child of Divorce Handbook. But truly, no amount of double Christmases could replace the time spent and memories made every year as love spread through our laughter and dug roots into our homes and bodies, proving that family doesn't always have to mean blood. In my case, my family is a reflection of every decision my mom made in her 53 years here on earth. My family is my mom's first husband, who she decided to share a child with. My family is their child, who my mom raised into a fierce, intelligent young woman who I now get to call my sister. My family is her grandmother, who sees me as a grandchild even if our genes say otherwise. My family is a man my mom met at a party one night who later becomes my dad. And finally, my family is everyone here today who my mom decided that somewhere and at some time she was going to put into her life and spread her unceasing love to. Our family tree together here stems from the shared roots of my mom's love that she planted into every person she met. As an 18-year-old, my journey so far has been paved by those who came before me. It began with my mom holding my hand as I took my first steps, requiring complete reliance on her to lead the way. In more recent years, she handed me the keys for me to steer on my own and practice navigating a world of peers, sports, school, and drama, and I would then come home to tell her about it. My mom always made sure that when I came home, she would always be there to support and guide me through every obstacle a young woman may face while learning the ways of the world. And that we could also, of course, watch some bad reality TV if I didn't want to talk about it, and we just wanted to ignore the world and escape. In a few weeks, a new leg of my journey begins 6 hours away on my own in a room approximately the size of a shoebox. In the year leading up to college, you prepare for the big changes that are to occur. You have to make new friends, survive communal bathrooms, and experience a major closet downsize. However, these past few months have shown me a bit different idea of a big change that I have to persevere through: the loss of my biggest supporter. As I pack up the knowledge my mom passed down to me, storing her advice and wisdom in my suitcase for this next chapter, I'm hit with the overwhelming reality that she won't be there and that this change is permanent. At no age are you prepared for the loss of someone you love, and there's no clear way to find comfort in the uncomfortable. In grief, you're overwhelmed with the what ifs. What you could have said or done differently had you known sooner. You grieve the memories that had yet to be made and the future that had yet to be built. It's easy for me to come up here and talk about the things I did not get to do with my mom. She won't be there to drop me off in Knoxville in August or be there to see me graduate in 4 years. She won't be there when I get married and won't be there to be my kids. However, when focusing on what can't happen, we lose sight of what we're really here for today: to celebrate and recognize my mom's accomplishments and contributions to the world. The tremendous grief we feel is a testament to the tremendous joy she gave us. If my mom were here today, she would not want us to weep in her death, but to smile in her life as we honor the beautiful soul she had and her imprint on our lives. Right now, she is watching us from heaven as we sit here together, bonding, laughing, and watering our family tree created from her love. That's all.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin McKeel. Elizabeth is my only first cousin. Really tough act to follow with Ripley and Flannery. That was great. Eric's musical performance was awesome. Let me get over here so you can hear me. I'm going to talk a little bit about the first 20 years of Elizabeth's life, since I think most of the folks here probably met her as an adult. Mary Beth Priest was born December 6, 1971 in Atlanta. She soon thereafter moved to a rural town of Fayetteville, Tennessee, of 7,000 people near the Alabama border and central part of the state. Elizabeth, as she was known for most of her life, and I were first cousins, as I said. Her mother, Ann, and my mother, Jane here, were sisters who both grew up in Fayetteville as well. Some 4.5 years earlier, I was born in Taipei, Taiwan, son of State Department parents. Our lives from the beginning were literally and figuratively a world apart, despite sharing maternal grandparents. By the time Elizabeth arrived, my parents had moved to Bolivia and then to Reston, Virginia, which is near Dulles Airport, for anyone who's been to Washington, D.C. and out towards Northern Virginia. Soon after, we moved to Reston, Virginia, and I have fond memories of our annual summer vacations to Fayetteville. If anyone has ever been to Fayetteville, it is a tiny town. It's one McDonald's, one stoplight town. You wouldn't think folks from big city would like it, but it really was something that we enjoyed. I got to spend a week with her. We would spend our days flying around our grandmother's limestone patio and roller skates. Even though I was older and well coordinated, you couldn't keep up there. It was like following the wind. We also would make homemade ice cream. We would turn the crank together. I remember that was something we all enjoyed, and she would tell me about life in Tennessee, which I really had a hard time understanding. She organized family skits. I was probably about 10 years old. My sister Jenny, who's going to speak here in a minute, arrived 20 months after Elizabeth. We're both convinced the skits were 100% Elizabeth's idea. Neither Jenny or I enjoys the spotlight or speaks as well as Elizabeth did. Really glad Facebook was not around back then, or I'd have to relive those moments again. As I said, we always got along swimmingly, and my sister, who knows about these things, tells me that Elizabeth and I share zodiac rising signs. She will speak in detail about that shortly. And maybe that's why. We were also active, we were active, non-judgmental types, which is in short supply in the world today. So life was not without its challenges for Elizabeth, and she's no longer here. I think about how we were handed different cards and how life was not fair to her. Her mother had significant health challenges. She was in her late 30s by the time Elizabeth was born. That wasn't really common in the 70s. Most of my childhood, I had the advantages of growing up in McLean, which is like 90210 meets NCIS suburban place, while she was in Fayetteville. I got to do international travel. Parents had funded my college tuition and had a stable family. Elizabeth's parents divorced when she was very young. She spent her childhood and teen years living between her single mother, her father, and a third wife who was not a kind stepmother, and my grandmother. There was a lot of traveling back and forth. We also did some vacations in the Outer Banks. I'll just mention something I think Flannery mentioned, that the different family, how she had a very modern family. Some of that you can see kind of repeating from her earlier family. Elizabeth did well in school. I believe she played in the orchestra. Fortunately, got out of Fayetteville. We all know she loved Memphis. I'm sure the best years of her life were at Memphis State University, where she studied literature for both a BA and master's degree. And yes, I'm aware it is now University of Memphis, but as a college basketball fan from the 1980s, it's still Memphis State to me. When you lose a close relative, your mind plays what-if games. I wonder now why we didn't plan more trips together. She visited Northern Virginia in the late 90s with Scott and Ripley, and also around 2010. We dined together, took in the DC site, saw the memorials, etc. In fact, Flannery's a 4-year-old, and her father Ian, right in the front row, went ice skating at the Washington Capitals practice facility, which is in my neighborhood in Arlington. I remember that very well. We also had family reunions. The last one I remember was in Murfreesboro, I think around 2003. I have fond memories of her wedding to Ian, which she planned out. I think it was in a beautiful art gallery. And I meant to mention, this is a wonderful facility here. Ripley did a fantastic job planning this whole event. I'm totally impressed. What I remember about the wedding, came to Memphis. It was around her, the whole artistic world that is the folks here. And it was the people she loved most. At one point, I have a distinct memory, music's playing on the dance floor. She's out there dancing by herself like nobody's watching. I often wondered if she would ever move to a coast or out of the country, but Memphis is home for her. It's a city she fiercely loved, as I think we all know. Every conversation Elizabeth and I had over the last 15 years centered around her girls, as she always referred to Ripley and Flannery. The two things I always appreciated about Elizabeth were her love for Memphis and her greater love for her daughters. We spent last summer planning Elizabeth's mother's aunt, my aunt, celebration of life, and it doesn't seem possible or fair that a year later, my mother's sister and I are back in Tennessee, to say goodbye to Elizabeth. The last 5 months does seem like a bad dream. I received a text from Ripley in March that Elizabeth was in the hospital following, I'm going to mispronounce this, brain surgery for glioblastoma. We came to find out that it was a horrible, incurable brain cancer. After she left the hospital the first time and was being cared for by Ripley and her husband Brian, Ginny and I planned to visit. Realistically, we knew it was to say goodbye to our only first cousin, but when we talked on the phone, it was Jenny, Elizabeth, Ripley, and myself. It was clear that Elizabeth wanted anything to be but to say goodbye. We were looking forward to seeing her house, watching movies, having a good time. As we know, life has a way of getting in the way of things, and we were soon told by Ripley to make our way down to Memphis immediately, as Elizabeth had returned to the hospital, never to live at home again. We visited in May. We spent a couple days at the hospital, meeting some of her friends, family, and learning of the amazing impact she had on the Memphis arts and startup business world. I knew a little bit about this, but really had no idea of her impact. We also learned the horrors of being uninsured and needing significant medical care. It seems like a cruel blow that Elizabeth's most recent nonprofit employer, where she served as executive director, Era Creative, I'm going to pronounce them correctly to finish the sentence, could not provide basic health insurance or find it in themselves to cover some of her health expenses, and that most of the people in this room helped via GoFundMe as best we could. As we visited Elizabeth, she reached her hand close to mine, and I recounted a few stories about when our childhood lives intertwined. More than anything else, what I remember about her, I'm convinced she appreciated that Jenny and I visited and hearing a bit about our current lives, despite the fact there was not the fun visit among cousins that we had planned a few weeks earlier. As we all know, Elizabeth was fiercely independent, lived her life helping others. Certainly being stuck in a hospital bedroom had to be the last place she wanted to be. Finally, I need to say a few words about a person I never met, Jennifer Larrabee. She helped Elizabeth get into hospice care and made the last few weeks of Elizabeth's life much better and much more comfortable and peaceful. And hearing that she also passed away a few weeks ago seems another horrible twist of fate. I hope everyone today commemorating Elizabeth's life will keep Ripley and Flannery in your thoughts and prayers and continue to offer support as Flannery goes to college and Ripley goes on with her life. And I think that would be Elizabeth's one request to all of us, that we look after Ripley and Flannery. God bless.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Rooker. Hi. I am Leslie Smith's daughter and a friend of Elizabeth. I knew Elizabeth because Flannery and my little sister, Delaney, were best friends. So I would see Flannery and Delaney just being like little freaks at my parents' house. And over time, Elizabeth and Flannery became like an extended member of our family. So when I moved to Memphis, Elizabeth and Flannery were like the built-in, cousins that you might have in your home state, which for me is Michigan. So that's how I knew Elizabeth. And this is my husband, Nate, I should say that. Today I'm gonna play a song called BKTY. Well, Nate's gonna play it, I'm gonna sing it, which stands for Be Kinder to Yourself. I wrote this song as part of a rock opera that I made and produced here in Memphis in 2022 and 2023. The song is about the journey from self-criticism to self-love. In the show, it's 3 different versions of the same person, kind of like fighting with each other. So when in 2017 and 2018, my family was going through tremendous loss, and Elizabeth shared On Joy and Sorrow, which is what this is from. It's a poem. And she shared it with me and said that it had helped her to think about how, however sad you are that someone is gone is a reflection of how much you loved them. And so that is what this is, and we talked about that a lot. We both loved spooky things and literature, so we talked about this poem quite a lot. And when I made this rock opera, which was about loss and the relationship between joy and sorrow, I used this is from the program from that show. And when Elizabeth came and we talked after, she was like, thought it was so cool that this ended up there, that I had said, my friend Elizabeth shared this with me. And so we bonded about this again, and she said, I love that song, BKTY, that you played. She was like really moved by it, and she told me. And as I understand, Elizabeth had a habit of wearing songs out, playing them on repeat. And I'm really honored that one of my songs was one that she had on repeat. It made it into her rotation. So I know that she loved this song, she listened to it a lot. When I visited her after she had had surgery, she said she had been listening to it again a lot, sort of meditatively, and I know she continued listening to it. You'll hear the song. It starts out not so nice, not so nice towards the person that's singing it. So it's interesting to imagine her listening to this song and this message of kindness for yourself, because Elizabeth had a gift for making those who knew her feel loved, seen, appreciated, wanted. She was never judging or critical. I was a mess of emotions in front of her many times. I'm a chaotic person in general, and she never judged me. There's so many entrepreneurs I've talked to who said that Elizabeth is the person that made them feel like they weren't alone, that made them feel, kind towards themselves. So I hope this song helped her practice towards herself what she gave freely to others in her life. And I hope that today, as we celebrate her life and mourn her absence, that this song can be a tribute to her and a reminder from her to all of us to be kinder to ourselves. Ugly girl, stupid girl, you're hurting everybody you said you loved, hiding in plain sight and not fooling anybody you said you loved. Honestly, do you think that you deserve love? Honestly, do you think you'll ever be enough? Honestly, do you think that you deserve love? Honestly, do you think you'll ever be enough? Honestly, do you think that you deserve love? Honestly, do you think you'll ever be enough? Honestly, do you think that you deserve love? Honestly, do you think you'll ever be enough? Honestly, do you think you can forgive me? Honestly, do you think you can forget one word of advice. Be kinder to yourself than you thought you could be. Oh, be kinder to yourself than you thought you could be. Oh, be kinder to yourself than you thought you could be. Oh, be kinder to yourself than you thought you could be. Oh, be kinder to yourself than you thought you could be. Oh, be kinder to yourself than you thought you could be. Oh, be kinder to yourself than you thought you could be. Oh, be kinder to yourself than you thought you could be. Oh, be kinder to yourself than you thought you could be. Oh, be kinder.
I should have gone first. My friend Emily Yellen told me just to breathe. So I will try to do that to get through this. My name is Molly Palatti. Elizabeth and I were very dear friends. Like Ripley, I did not write my words down. This is a trick. This is a poem. Elizabeth and I first met when she was still at Startco and I was in workforce development. And I was trying to find a place to send people that came looking for jobs that wanted to start businesses. I couldn't have found a better advocate than Elizabeth. And I think like attracts like as far as talkers. Much like Leslie and Elizabeth's friendship and Leslie's and my friendship, we frequently were fighting for purchase to see who could make their point before they forgot it. And Elizabeth and I became closer and closer as the years went by. We developed a closeness over COVID from working from home and being in transition. And we also, while we wanted to embrace getting older gracefully, there were things that we did, the light mask that you might find at your mom's, that we fought hard to try not to do. That was not surgical, but nonetheless. I remember meals and countless bottles of wine. She was the red wine drinker, I was the white wine drinker. Or no, opposite. She was the white wine drinker, I was the red wine drinker. I can't tell you how many pizzas she went and got from Ripley at Aldo's. We loved I can't even think of the name of it now, the magic mushroom or mellow, whatever it was. Shroomy truffle, anyway, that one. She would come to where I was pet sitting, and we would hang out and eat pizza and drink wine and attempt to solve the world's problems. I agree with Leslie that Forge was ahead of its time. And one of the conversations Elizabeth and I had when she took the last position that she took at the place that shall remain nameless, although Kevin named it. We wish mean things upon them. I shouldn't say that, but that's where we are. But that it was kind of Forge 2.0. And I think had things worked out differently and Elizabeth been able to carry out the vision that she had going in, it would have truly been Forge 2.0. Elizabeth was always up for an adventure, although I am not adventurous as far as ziplining and scary rides, and there's not enough Lexapro in the world for that for me. If I wanted to go hear some random show at the Shell, she was right there. We loved to go to the Shell. I shared some pictures on Facebook. One night we went to a Shell show, and there was the big clear balloon thingy that was out in front of the Brooks, and we went and had pictures made there, and we just had fun. It's what we did. And I still remember hearing from Ripley about what was going on, and couldn't get to the hospital fast enough, and went into fix-it mode, and God damn it, I couldn't fix this. I remember one of the last times we were trying to help her still feel a little bit independent, and Ripley and Brian and Ian and Flannery needed a break, so I took one for the team and stayed with her for a weekend at her house. And this will surprise no one, she was waiting on a coffee maker to be delivered. And it didn't come on Friday like it was supposed to. It came early Saturday. I was upstairs in Flannery's room, and she was downstairs on the couch, and I was not up yet. Last time I had checked on her, she was still asleep on the couch, and I hear this kerfluffle happening, and there were no animals here. This will surprise no one that Elizabeth decided she needed the coffee maker that was on the front steps and was going to get it herself, and fell ass over tea kettle. Luckily, she did not hurt herself. I chastised her endlessly, and then when my masseuse came that day to give me a massage, because it had already been scheduled before we knew, she also gave Elizabeth a massage to help ease any aches and pains that she might have. I don't know how many of you are familiar with kintsugi, the Japanese art of fixing broken things with gold. Elizabeth's death has left a huge crack in me that has not filled with gold yet. So I'm going to leave you not with a Khalil Gibran poem, but one from Mary Oliver. When death comes, like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut, when death comes, like the measles pox, when death comes, like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, the cottage of darkness? And therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy, and as singular, and each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending as all music does towards silence. And each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world.
Hi, I'm Elisa Bennett. I'm a friend of Elizabeth's. And I first met Elizabeth when she went by Mary Beth. She was about 18 or 19 years old, so it was around, I think, 1990, but my math is not great. But we were at the University of Memphis, which went by Memphis State University at the time. We were in the same philosophy class, and I was drawn to her intelligence and the cool vibe that she projected. Ooh, I did not expect to have problems this soon. Hold on.
Just breathe.
Yeah. We became fast friends, and we would regularly go out goth dancing. Over the years, we were in and out of each other's lives, and whenever we got together, we picked right up like no time had passed. And every time I was amazed by the mother that she was and the work that she had been doing to support Memphis entrepreneurs and the art community. I saw Flannery some when she was a baby, but when we reconnected once, Elizabeth invited me over for a really delicious veggie lasagna, and I got to get to know 9 or 10-year-old Flannery a little bit. Not Flannery, sorry, Ripley. This was Ripley. I wrote down the wrong name. It was Ripley, and she was a mini Mary Beth, and I just loved seeing it. We made some great memories through the years. One standout was about 7 years ago. We went to see Tank and the Bangas at Claiborne Temple, and the whole concert and the venue were just hypnotically magic, and my memories from the night were just joy, and we just danced. When the concert was over, we walked out, and it was a huge storm, like a mega Memphis storm. And it had been pummeling Memphis, and we had no idea. We'd just been dancing and having a great time. And like half the city was without lights, and it was just crazy, and she slept on my couch because we didn't think she could get to her house. And we would talk about that all the time. And as stated by many people, Elizabeth was fierce, and she was brave, and she was up for anything. And she approached life with an open heart. She believed in the innate goodness and the power of people. Last night, I picked up a book, The Boy, the Mole, The Fox and the Horse, which was one of her favorite books. And I just opened to a page. And as everybody was talking today, I think the page is really appropriate. So it said, "Sometimes I think you believe in me more than I do," said the boy. "You'll catch up," said the horse. And I think that Elizabeth is our horse. And one of the last conversations I had with Elizabeth while she was in the hospital, I was wearing my Baron von Opperbean's Exploratorium of Magic t-shirt. Elizabeth got excited in her hospital bed and began to tell me that the permanent space they had been hoping for was going to happen at Mud Island. This was before it was even being publicized, and so it was great news to me. But it really struck me that even from her hospital bed, she knew what was going on in the Memphis art scene, and she was still promoting our local art community. It feels negligent not to also tell you how very deeply Jennifer Larrabee adored Elizabeth. And I loved your words, Kevin. I recently read the book, The Collected Regrets of Clover by Mickey Brammer. Toward the end, there was a paragraph about grief that really resonated with me. and it feels appropriate. It said, "Grief, I've come to realize, was like dust. When you're in the thick of a dust storm, you're completely disoriented by the onslaught, struggling to see or breathe. But as the force recedes and you slowly find your bearings and see a path forward, the dust begins to settle into the crevices, and it will never disappear completely. As the years pass, you'll find it in unexpected places at unexpected moments. Grief is just love looking for a place to settle." Elizabeth was an incredible human. She was effortlessly beautiful, but that took a backseat to her wit and her desire to support her community. She loved her daughters fiercely, and she was so very proud of both of them. And I love that Elizabeth has created a community of people who loved her and will continue to support her daughters. Elizabeth will be deeply missed.
Hi, my name is Jenny. I'm Elizabeth's cousin. My brother and I, with our family, grew up spending summers in Fayetteville, visiting Elizabeth, who was then Mary Beth, and the extended family. Elizabeth's 20 months older than me, and we played together as toddlers, as kids and teens, but we grew apart in adulthood. She was the only woman in our extended family my age, and to me, she felt like a kind of sister. I thought we had the rest of our lives to reconnect, and it's difficult to wrap my head around my family existing without her in it. Last summer, our family congregated for the celebration of life of Elizabeth's mother, my Aunt Anne, and I saw Ripley and Flannery for the first time in many years. Ripley and I bonded a little bit over astrology. I'm from California. And Elizabeth expressed to me how happy she was to see that Ripley and I connected in that way. And so Ripley asked if I would talk a little bit about Elizabeth's astrology as a way of talking about her life. So bear with me on the astro talk. Elizabeth was born into a difficult family environment, which contrasted against the stable home that I grew up in. It was a crucible. I would not wish her upbringing on anyone, and I wish I had understood it better at the time, but I was growing up myself. The difficulties she sustained in her childhood dogged her, and that's something we talked a lot about as adults. None of the things she went through growing up were easy, and that was the hand she was dealt. I can see this in her natal astrology chart, which is a snapshot of where the planets were in the sky the minute of her birth in Atlanta, Georgia. Each planet appears in the area of the sky associated with a specific zodiac sign in a specific house or dimension of life. When she was born, the planet Mars, associated with aggression and conflict, was in the area of her chart, the fourth house that represents home, childhood, and deep roots, which says her childhood was full of conflict that created tension within her sense of self. But the amazing thing about her is that despite her difficult upbringing, from the jump, she had an incandescent personality. So there was the dark of her family environment, and there was the light of who she was. She was beautiful, feisty, and plucky, even as a child. I envied her charisma growing up, chatting up relatives, talking to boys, making friends everywhere while I was shy and self-conscious. She was someone from a young age who never shrunk back from life experience. Whatever it was, she dove in. She had a luster that attracted others. My brother mentioned that we performed in skits growing up for the relatives, and I remember that the skits were her idea. She was the director. She designed programs. It was like family, cousins, theater production, and she created tickets that we handed out. She had a creative ambition even then. This shine she cast attached me to her as a child. And that's part of why I can't imagine our family without her in it. I can see this in her natal chart because she was born under the sun sign of Sagittarius, a fire sign symbolized by the archer with a bow and arrow. Sagittarians are friendly, adventurous, open spirits who ferociously value truth and radiate optimism. They direct their creative energy toward their ideals. They prize freedom and fun and operate like the world is their playground. They can be reckless in pursuing their dreams. They encapsulate a relentless drive for freedom, and they've got tons of wild, fiery energy. At the same time, when she was born, in the sign of Sagittarius, it was in the first house of self, right next to the planet Jupiter and Mercury, all of which indicates an enormous personality, someone you won't miss when she walks in the room, someone who is an overdose of fun and freedom and adventurous, someone who is alive like a flame, and that was her. She also had a depth of feeling. Astrologically, her moon was in the sign of Leo, which represents our mood, our emotions, our psychological temperament. Leo is a fire sign associated with the late summer when the light is starting to wane. Leo moons are driven to sustain something that is eternal and transcendent, even though the light will eventually die. They are often associated with royalty, the lioness walking proudly into the night. They want their lives to be unique and special. They seek purpose. They are maternal. They love romance, and they need to devote themselves to something larger than themselves. They have a penchant for theatricality. They are caring, loyal, and sweet. And I see this in her in so many ways. She loved her daughters something fierce. They were the world to her. I didn't hear much about her career when we talked. She talked about Flannery and Ripley. I remember her telling me when Ripley was born that having Ripley saved her life, and it gave her life. When she was a kid, she played the flute in a state-level orchestra. I played the piano, and I was like, whatever, it's a piano. But I remember she took her flute playing so seriously. She had a presence when she played that was almost regal but not boastful. She was ardent and determined about whatever she was doing. In high school, she was really involved in her church, and she seemed like she was really into it, but she wasn't. When she got to Memphis, but she was like that with whatever she did, you know, she was in it to win it. And then in college, she directed that enthusiasm toward the goth scene, Memphis, studying Gothic lit. I remember a letter she wrote me describing her romance with her first husband and saying, "It felt like we were walking on the stars." I see her leonine heart all over her career that I've learned about. Friends have described her as a force of nature, a trailblazer, a badass, a rock star, a go-getter, a mentor, a powerhouse, a warrior. The number of people who have said she changed their lives stuns. When she died, the moon was in the sign of Sagittarius, her sun sign, and it was a new moon, the first lunar phase, in the area of her chart where the planet Neptune resided, which is associated with spirituality, creativity, peace. And I like to think that she died peacefully, ushered away by that calm, peaceful new moon.
Thank you all. I can't see anymore. My eyes are throbbing, my head hurts, my body aches. And I am grateful because I have felt every emotion of this experience and feel Elizabeth here with us. That chart reading was an expression of Elizabeth in every possible layer. So thank you for sharing that with me, with all of us, but I felt like I just heard the person I knew and loved so well in so many ways. So thank you for that. Molly, I love you. Thank you for saying the things that need to be said when they most need to be said, because Elizabeth would have done that too. I'm here to do a couple of things. I'm going to share some housekeeping with you, and then I'm going to invite anyone who wants to take the daunting trip up here to stand next to me and make remarks about Elizabeth to do that. We're eager to hear your stories and reflections. I'm also here to remind you that out on the table there are tents with QR codes that will link you directly to sign up for the fundraising walk/run that is planned for tomorrow. Thank you, Flan, for pulling that together. That's a beautiful way to honor Elizabeth and help others who are faced with this insidious diagnosis. I'm also here to invite you. The programs say one thing, but I'm going to say a different thing, and you are to listen to me. We are going to, anyone who wants to, head to Young Avenue Deli afterwards to have some wine maybe and toast Elizabeth and some food. We had other plans, but what do they say? When we make plans, the universe laughs, and it laughed at us. So we'll be going to Young Avenue after. I also just want to say that I feel her here with us in every word that has been spoken and breath that has been taken and heartbeat that has occurred since we walked into this space. So I am grateful, Emily, Ripley, and Flannery, for all that you did to create a space that would allow us to share your mother's magic collectively and celebrate her life. So without further ado, if there is anyone who would like to come and share a thought or feeling or experience they've had with Elizabeth, I know it seems scary up here, but it is not. I invite you to do that now. I'll move out of your way and then move closer to you if we feel like it's time to get ready to go to Young Avenue Deli. No, I'm just kidding. Ripley literally said we can stay here all day if people want to talk about my mom. So I honor that. We can stay here all day and talk about Elizabeth. So I welcome you down. Okay.
Hey everybody, I'm Ripley's husband, Brian, and first I just wanted to say thank you to all of you guys. This past year has been incredibly challenging and confusing and just really, really sad. And all of your support has made it a lot easier. I didn't really, none of us anticipated this or saw it coming. Having Elizabeth stay in our home is throughout like most of spring was nice because I got to know Elizabeth a lot better. But it was also it was sad because I had to take care of her when she couldn't take care of herself. Sorry, I'm also struggling a little bit because I'm sick, which is just the cherry on top. Just hearing all of you guys talk was so nice and sweet. I feel like I'm just gonna echo all of your words, but and just say that. Sorry. Elizabeth had a passion for life that never stopped. She was hopeful the whole time. And it was really inspiring. You'd expect for her to complain, and she wanted to work on her PT or her OT and keep going. She was incredibly hopeful. She wanted to find love again. She was talking to people about finding a job. I was like, calm down. Oh, man. Sorry, my voice is just wavering because I'm sick and also because I'm very emotional. I could not have asked for a better mother-in-law. She was so supportive of our relationship, and our lives. And she introduced me to a lot of really cool things. I really love Jesus Christ Superstar because of her. And I thought the rock opera song was just so beautiful and just a really great tribute to her memory. She also loved to cook, and I love to cook. She challenged me to search for some new recipes and some new cuisines, and I've cooked at Kilowat, which is something that's really cool. It's a fun Ethiopian dish that you should try. But yeah, she's just so hopeful, so energetic and amazing, and she never quit. And just very thankful for all of your support and help. Sorry. Ripley wanted me to share one more thing. We listened to Prince at the beginning of this. And when Elizabeth was in the hospital, we were playing some Prince for her, and this was at a time where things had progressed to a very late stage. But again, she never quit, she never gave up, and she still had all this hope, and she wanted to be there for Ripley and for Flannery. And the song, I Would Die For You, came on, and she did the hand motion with the song just to be there for us and to perform along with us and enjoy the song. And it was just a really beautiful moment. So it's like that. So is that what you do it, Rip? It's like, I would die for you. And it was a really beautiful moment. And just, again, shows that she never, ever gave up on life. She never gave up on hope. And that she just had an energy that could not be, snuffed out. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Young, and I had the privilege of being introduced to Elizabeth during my first tenure at Epicenter. I just want to share just a couple of brief memories that come to mind for me. So first, I joined Epicenter around 2017 or 18. Elizabeth had been there the longest. And so we're working on this program called Friends and Family, right, which we're kind of injecting early stage capital into businesses. And it was so important to her that as I was reviewing these applications, that I was not looking at these from a traditional banker's lens, right? And she was so passionate about making sure that I was looking at this through the lens of underserved entrepreneurs, and it really stood out to me that she was just a champion of entrepreneurs, a champion of the creative economy, and those things really stand out to me. And it stuck with me for a while. The second thing that I wanted to make mention, I talked about how she was there the longest. At the time, I was the newest, and I was supposed to know something, but I didn't know it. And I can't remember what it was, but what I do know is, I was definitely afraid to ask Leslie a question. So I go upstairs and I have a conversation with Elizabeth, and we got it worked out. But she was so supportive, so my questions didn't seem too elementary for her. She worked it through with me. The final thing I'll mention, and this is probably what stands out the most to me, when I joined Epicenter, my children were, 8, 6, and 1. So now they're 13, 11, and 6. And so every time I would see Elizabeth, she would always ask me about my kids. At the time when I joined the organization, I was the first boy, right? I was the first guy. I joined this team full of rock star women, amazing moms, and she always asked me about my kids, right? And so she made me feel like I was a part of the Cool Parents Club. And when she would ask me about my kids, she would always go back to a fond memory of her girls when they were that age. And so I really appreciated her for including me into the Cool Parents Club. And so I have nothing but fond memories of Elizabeth, and my condolences to her family and friends. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Marvin Stockwell, and Elizabeth Lemmonds is my friend. Christopher Reyes, Reuben Brunson, Catherine Hicks, and myself are working on this effort, Baron von Opperbein, in the River of Time at Mud Island, and Elizabeth was one of the first people that we told about this because she's that type of insider that you want to talk to and share your aspirations and your hopes. Christopher and I are both probably equally close to Elizabeth, so you divide and conquer. Elizabeth, Christopher is the one who reached out to Elizabeth, and I assume that she was very encouraging, but it is a great consolation to know that she was excited about that, and even before the news broke. In the months, or I don't remember, the time is funny, I don't remember exactly when it was, but Chris Rubin and I went to Elizabeth's, to visit Elizabeth in hospice, and it was past the time that she was able to speak. And when we got there, she was asleep, and these are not easy things to do, and you think, oh, well, in a way you selfishly think, oh, maybe I'm off the hook, not to. But we thought, well, we should talk. We should let her know we're here, and then we started talking to her, and we thought, the three things, the very thing that we have in common that we know we've clued her in on is this Baron von Opperbein business. So we should tell Elizabeth how things are going, right? So we start to give her this update. And it was probably a little bit before the kind of news started to break about it and anything, so we're giving her this update. And she wakes up, and she looked at us intently, and as each of us would take time to speak, she would slowly gravitate to the other, and she'd look right at us. And we just poured our hearts out, right? We just tell her anything and everything, exactly the way we would, and exactly the way we did countless other times, countless other projects, things we were hoping to do, some things we did do, some things we planned to do and didn't do. But Elizabeth was, as many of you have said today, so supportive. As I think about the image of Elizabeth that I would use in the Facebook post that I have yet to make, lifting her up and celebrating her life, is that photo of her. Others of you have shared it. It was when Aaron Schaefer was trying to get the skate park built, right? And everybody was holding that skateboard that says, "I'm on board." It's funny, you see that photo in people's, from that time period. And I think that's what I remember most about Elizabeth, is she was on board. She was on board, and it had to do with great ideas and lifting up good ideas, but it principally had to do with belief in the people who were behind them. And I am incredibly fortunate that I was such a person that enjoyed her support and her encouragement. I know that when Chris Rubin and I left that day, we felt encouraged in the same way that I always felt when I would tell Elizabeth our plans. I just got back from about a 3.5-week podcast road trip. I host a podcast called Champions of the Lost Causes. Why do people champion causes? What sustains them? What helps them succeed? I went out West Coast last summer and had such a great experience, such an encouraging experience. Went to the East Coast this summer. And I think to myself, I should have interviewed Elizabeth on the program. And it's like somebody was saying, you think you've got the rest of your life to catch up. Well, in Memphis, it's kind of like the people that champion causes, and Elizabeth is chief among those people, championed many, 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 many causes and the people behind them. I didn't get to have her on my podcast, and I view that as an incredible missed opportunity because she certainly was that. She was my good friend and comrade in arms in so many things that Memphis has yearned to do, and I'm grateful that she's my friend. Thank you.
Howdy, gang. I'm Delaney. I'm Emily's little sister and the youngest daughter of Leslie. It's hard to sort of describe what Elizabeth was to me. I knew her when we first moved to Memphis in 4th grade. And as my mother said, she was like the first person we ever met, and she was like, oh, you'll meet her daughter, you're the same age, you'll be besties, and I was like, oh, brother. But then we did become best friends, and I still considered Flannery my greatest friend of all. And Elizabeth, for me, truly was like my home away from home for the whole time I knew her. I was able to go with her with questions and things that I was too scared to tell my own mother. I told her so many things that when I was going through the hardest periods of my life, I was able to tell her these things. She was also my biggest supporter. I remember she didn't, like, I'm not her child, and she still would come to all my shows, and she would be like, you did so good, I'm so proud of you, and I was like, it was so sweet. She would come when my family wasn't there. She would just come on her own and support me. And she really didn't have to do that, and she did. I remember she was the first person I went kayaking with. We shared a kayak, me, Flannery, and Elizabeth. And I remember being very scared. I was very scared, and she was like, you should just be bold. You should face your fears head on. You should wear your fears on your sleeve. And I haven't told anyone because I wanted to keep it close to my chest, but she's the reason I got my first tattoo, which is this bee, because of what she said to me. She tried to convince me to go ziplining over Shelby Farms, and I was like, hell no. And I think of her every time I do something that I'm so afraid of doing. She helped me through so many panic attacks. She was the first person I watched Rocky Horror Picture Show with, which is such an important part of my life. I remember watching music videos and dancing with her. I remember I have so many memories of her. She would let me and Flannery blast musicals in the car. When she would drive us places, we'd make her drive her places. We were like, we're gonna go get froyo, and she would drive us when we couldn't drive. She supported my chaos, our chaos, which I really appreciated. She was just so wonderful. And one of the last times I saw her before she got sick, we had this whole conversation about how she was so excited that I was an adult now because that means we could like smoke weed together. And I am very disappointed that I'll never get to share a joint with her. And she also talked to me about how proud she was of me and how she was looking forward to like seeing my press interviews and watching my Oscar acceptance speech. And I so wish I could tell her about all the things I do in my life, and I'll feel that way forever. Because she truly was like one of the first people I would tell things about beyond like my own family. Because she is family to me. She truly was like my second mom. So it really sucks. And I don't do emotions very well, but around her I felt like I could be emotional. She was someone easy to like cry around, to be scared around, to be angry around, because I knew that she wouldn't judge me, and I knew that she would support me and be wonderful, and I loved making jokes with her. Yeah. I love Elizabeth. She's one of my favorite people ever. So it's weird to do this and speak about her like she's not here, because she's not, but like my mother said, it's like she is here. And I'll miss seeing her in rooms because whenever my mother would drag me to work events, I always would look for Elizabeth because I feel like she was like the number one person I could talk to, and every time I saw her, I would like brighten up and be like, Elizabeth! And we'd talk, and I'm sad that I can't do that anymore. I am very grateful that she's introduced me to Flannery and gave birth to Flannery because she's my favorite chaos agent. And yeah, I think I said everything I want to say.
Hi everyone, I'm Danya, and like everyone in this room, I am a lover of Elizabeth, a lover of someone I actually didn't quite know, and that's because I've known Ripley and I've known Brian. I met Brian over 10 years ago now, and he's been one of the closest friends I've ever had. And as we all know, when we have a friend that we love, we hope that they meet someone that loves them in a way that they deserve. And it wasn't long after I met Ripley that I knew that she was that love. Ripley is the kind of person that you pray for the people you love to meet. You pray for the presence of someone that is as strong and as brave and as loving and fearless as she is. And then you find out who her mother was and is, and it makes sense. I've heard the same of Flannery, and I've heard it in the sentiments here today in the song, so beautiful, that was played. And I think what I want to say today is that love never leaves us. It just takes on new forms. And I've never been one, actually that's a lie. I used to be one to, I'm a fix-it person too. I've spent a lot of my life going straight to how I can fix and moving away from how I can be, with pain, with sorrow, as we've talked about, with grief. I've spent most of my life running from it by being helpful. And what I've learned and what I'm hearing today is sometimes what we need most is to just be, and to remember that she doesn't need fixing. Her memory will live and be and transform and stay and remain. And I'm grateful to know that. I'm going to give another Mary Oliver poem that I've loved my whole life because it's quite short and my memory retention is poor. It's very similar. Yes, very similar to the poems we've talked about today. It's called The Use of Sorrow. You've maybe heard it, but it said, "Someone once gave me a box full of darkness. It took me years to realize that this too was a gift." And from what I can tell, her life was difficult. It started difficult. It was difficult at the end. But she somehow made it a gift. And now her gift will be here with us to repurpose. And I know already you're going to do such an amazing job at living that legacy, because you already do. You all do. So thank you for giving me a space today. I love you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Taylor, and I'm an ugly crier. But I think I just need to cry, and it is daunting to come up here. It's weird, you know, I wanted this day for her, this celebration of her life when she was alive. I feel like Elizabeth did a lot for this city, and a lot of it was like behind the scenes, and so I think everyone here knows how important she was, but I think there's so many more people who could have known and should know how important she was and her care for the city. And she talked for years about how she couldn't wait to move away, but I think we all knew that she loved it here, and this was really her home, and I think she just wanted more opportunities to travel. I think that was it, but she would always come back here. I met Elizabeth a year after I moved to Memphis, so 2016. She was one of my first friends. So she was a friend first, and then a coworker, because we worked together. But I also looked at her as not like my mom, but she's around the same age as my mom, and she and my mom had kids very young, and so Ripley and I are around the same age. And I don't have a great relationship with my mom, but I always looked at Elizabeth as like, this is the cool mom. This is what I would have loved to have. And Leslie too, and working with Tonda. We were the original group that was in the terrible basement at the fireworks building. And I don't know how I got that job. Leslie offered it to me. It's what got me to stay in Memphis, and Elizabeth interviewed me, and I remember walking to the Startco building and just being terrified because I've always had anxiety issues. And it's like I almost called it off, but she interviewed me, and I had no idea what I was about to be doing, but it changed my life. I still work in entrepreneurship. Is this 8 years later? Not in the same way, but I still do the same type of work, and working with that team has really instilled a lot of the values that I have today, especially working with Elizabeth. And we were talking earlier about how much she cares for entrepreneurs, especially those who don't have access to networks or capital or things that we take for granted if we have any sort of privilege of our own. And I carry that today in the work that I do, of thinking about how we can reach those who are ignored a lot of times. And I wouldn't have that those thoughts if it weren't for Elizabeth. She was so easy to talk to. I love that I found someone who liked scary horror movie things as much as I did. All my friends are too normal for that, so if I wanted to go to DKDC or B-Side or the movie marathons at the drive-in, I would call Elizabeth, and that's what we would do. Really great to work with, too. We could commiserate on a lot of things, so I felt like she was a safe space where if I had a bad day, I'd tell her about it, and she had a bad day, she would tell me about it. And if things weren't going the way that we wanted them to, we would imagine how we would fix them, but most of the time we wouldn't do anything to fix it. And it was really nice, and I was so sad when she left Epicenter. I didn't leave, or I left not too long after, but I kept up with what she was doing, and she was always so passionate about the different positions that she got, whether it was other foods or Philip Ashley chocolates, whatever it was. She really wanted to make a difference, and I think she was able to connect with people in a way that did make a difference. I saw her a few times here and there at B-Side or anywhere else where it was alternative themed. I'd run into her, and I remember when she got her job at Aero Creative, and she told me, she said that she was so happy to be there, but they didn't have health insurance, but she was excited because she would be able to raise money to get that for her employees. And I'm sad to see that, she wasn't able to do that, but she has had so much impact on the other organizations she's been in, and she's always kept the person at the center in their life. What was their life outside of work? What was their family life like? That was what was important to her, and I saw that in all the work that she did. So thanks for watching me ugly cry.
Hey everyone, I'm Ruben. Marvin was talking about us earlier, about this crazy project that we're working on, and just to give you some background, Elizabeth was a great friend. She was a great supporter. She was a fellow entrepreneur. We shared all kinds of ideas together, and she was just one of the best people to support you in whatever you were doing. And this crazy Baron von Opperbein thing that keeps coming up on Mud Island, we're going to name one of the ships there the SS Elizabeth, because she was a fellow time traveler and adventurer. I got to role play with her. If y'all don't know, she was a big nerd. We played Dungeons and Dragons. We played board games. We had a great time. So I got to kind of know that side of her too. But she was a great friend, and I know everyone's hungry, so I'm going to stop here before I ugly cry too. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jacqueline. Kate, as Ripley and her family knows me. I'm more in support here for Ripley and Flannery, and I was Ripley's neighbor growing up, and Elizabeth was the cool mom. She lived with her grandma, Miss Ellen, and then Mr. Scott, as I knew them, and we would always play, and I just remember on the weekend she had to go with her mom, and I was really sad, and that was like my friend. But everything that everyone is saying, like, it's just so interesting, kind of growing up and seeing your friend and not really knowing their mom. You're seeing them in a mom form always, and today just hearing what everyone is saying, Ripley for sure is her mom. Most distinctly when y'all are talking about the yapping and the talking a lot. Because her and I can also sit anywhere forever and talk about any and everything. And same with her husband Brian, which is now in the bestie form with me now as well. Which is also a blessing that Ripley has Brian in this time. It's really interesting to hear all the parallelisms between the two. Ripley is in her Saturn's return. I love that we're having this astrology moment and the sound listening. This is also up my alley, and I'm all over the place with this too, but I grew up Catholic. We do a funeral, we say the rosary together, and this is so much cooler. And also going back to that again, she was the cool mom. I think I was introduced to Rocky Horror Picture Show too young because my parents didn't know I was watching it over there. And then just being able to kind of see Ripley, like she said, not have a rebellious side because her mom was so accepting of everything, and same with her dad. And whereas I had to sneak around and get in trouble and learn the hard way of things, where it's very special to, it seems like she had a really good balance on raising both of her children. She's, they've been able to have these open and honest conversations with each other, which not everyone has. I didn't get that until I was an adult, with my parents, and talking about the community and radicalizing employees to go against their, just for rights and everything. Ripley's really into that as well. As if anyone had a conversation with her, you would know that. I was telling Brian last week, it's hard to be there for someone when you just don't know what to say. I think she was taken so young. I think 53 is it's the new 30. Like, it's so young. And I just remember the last time I saw her too, I was telling Brian, the only thing I can do is just keep inviting Ripley to do things with me, keeping a part of things. I encourage everyone in this time, I know she's posted on the Facebook page, to use all of these connections you have to help Flannery, to help Ripley. We have an 18-year-old girl, and Ripley had a little sister the same age I had my first niece, so they're in the same age range. And there's such an honor that you had to have such a cool mom and a cool role model, and I hope you got all the wisdom from them. But it seems like if you forget anything, you have a lot of really cool people to ask questions and get answers from. And I just want to say that if y'all need anything, let me know. And I hope that this isn't just a weekend for everyone, and I hope that her memory continues to live on, and that you continue reaching out and hugging the people that you love and not waiting until a reunion or anything. If the thought crosses your mind to call someone, call them. Even if it's in the car ride to your work or to the grocery store, you just never know. So, thank you.
I can see again now, so I know who you are. Oh, are you coming down? You're looking, okay. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, just didn't want to transition. I'm going to let Ripley close this out. She has a few more things to say, so I will just do a quick housekeeping. Gretchen has asked on behalf of Ballet Memphis if when we leave we can take all of our snotty rags and empty things and throw them in the trash on the outside. Reminder that if you'd like to come hang out at Young Avenue, please do that. We will all be there celebrating Elizabeth. And one thing, as I've listened to all of you talk in beautiful expression of the love we share for Elizabeth, that becomes really clear. And I think Emily, when she told me she was singing Be Kinder to Yourself, I was like, how's that gonna go? Because the beginning part is pretty rough. You're being pretty rough on yourself. And then you ultimately learn how to be kind with yourself. And I think Elizabeth was constantly trying to figure out how to be kinder to herself. I think she was constantly trying to figure out how to center herself and her needs, and may have at times been depleted because she was so busy pouring into all of us that she had little left for herself. And while we are all deeply grateful for that, and she did it without any hesitation at all and with a great generosity, the lesson is maybe, as we pour into each other, to allow others to pour into us. And so I hope we did that in small ways for Elizabeth. I know I tried, but sit here in reflection of knowing that we all had way more in most moments because of how generous and gracious she was with each of us. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for this day. I'm grateful for all of you, and I leave it to you, Miss Ripley.
Okay, I did not plan to close this out, and I don't really have anything concrete, but I just had a few things that people have mentioned that I wanted to expand on, or just make sure that you guys know. So after my mom woke up from surgery and we were visiting her, I think I promised everyone in the Facebook group, or maybe there wasn't one yet, but I told everyone that I would be reading all of your words to her, and I just wanted to let y'all know that I never got to finish because literally every single time I would say, oh, this person said this, before I could say your words, she'd be like, oh, they're that person that this, and I met them here, and this is their project, and do you remember that time that I was telling you? And she just loved everybody. She thought the world of everyone. There wasn't a single person that I was like, oh, they said they love you, that she was like, ugh. I will say at the end, when it was getting worse, there was a time when I was reading them and she goes, okay, it's getting a bit redundant now. I said, okay. Like Kate mentioned, and I mentioned, I didn't have a rebellious phase, and I've actually talked about it with Brian a little bit, how I've never really had to hide much of myself from my mom or my family, and I was kind of going over it with him, like, oh, you mean there's people that, like, their parents just don't know them? He's like, yeah, Ripley, you haven't had to pretend a day in your life, because your parents love and accept you and support you, and it doesn't matter what you do, they're going to be behind you, like. And it's true, I never really had to mince words with her. And even as I got older, if there were lies I told her as a teenager, I just admitted them openly and she wouldn't really care. I was a teenager and she was very understanding of that. She also with things just like with Flannery, she didn't want to impede on her privacy. Like how I know so many parents like, I don't know, like look over their kid, like check their location all the time. And our mom was very like, I trust you guys. Like why would I want to get in your way, sort of thing. There was more that I wanted to say. Brian said this a little too, but when she was first diagnosed, and I was reading up about it online, which I really tried to avoid doing, I heard a lot from people saying that this was going to be really hard, and she was going to say things that she didn't mean, and that it wouldn't be her, and to just remember her as she was. But that never happened. She never was mean. She never said anything ugly. Even I know how frustrated she was that she wasn't fully independent toward the end, but she was always just so considerate, and even with her little bell in the middle of the night, dinging it, she would always be like, I'm so sorry, I know you're asleep. And I'd be like, you have the biggest excuse in the world right now, I'm not mad. But yeah, she was just like kind and beautiful through the whole thing, as you would expect her to be. I also wanted to mention Rocky Horror because it is really cool to have a mom who was so supportive of me when I did Rocky Horror. She was very on top of like, here's when the audition is. Here's what I'm allowing you to do. Oh, they won't allow you to be Janet at 16? Well, that's not my fault. Like, you should be Janet. And as soon as I turned 18, she was in the crowd. She watched me do that a bunch of times, and I just think it's really cool that I have a mom that was accepting of that and didn't think it was weird to come watch her daughter run around in her underwear. And I just wanted to thank Ballet Memphis and everyone who spoke today. And I also did want to mention Jennifer Larrabee again. As many of you knew, she died on, I don't know exactly, but she died within the last month. And she was just so there for us during all of this. I would tell my mom, I'm not ranking your friends, but Jen is my favorite. Because she was there the day she was she was there the day she was discharged. She helped me, Ian, and Flannery with like the gate belt and showing us how to get her around. She was just so there for us. She's who got us help with hospice. And I didn't know Jen before this, but it was a positive through all of this that I got to meet her, and I was so excited to get to know her better and hear more stories about my mom through her. And it's just unbelievable that they were both taken from us this way, but I like to think that they're laughing together somewhere and drinking a bottle of wine, and that they're listening to us today, and I really think our mom would be happy with the beautiful service we put on. I think it would be exactly what she wanted. Yeah, I guess that's it. So thank you guys so much.